What's up, guys? This is Rey-Jay back with another video, and today I want to talk about what's happening with Tesla SPY in the broader markets. I'm also going to break down some updates involving Donald Trump's tariffs. Just note that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposits $2,000, and you're guaranteed at 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, let's talk about what's happening with this market. So far, the market's looking very, very resilient, holding support quite nicely. We also happen to have an inverse head and shoulders like setup, but whether or not this pans out depends on some factors. Now, we were correct about the sell-off that came initially because of the manufacturing numbers. Looking at the ISM manufacturing PMI, this was below expectations, not the best of headlines. But then our manufacturing employment was also at 47.6. This is technically below expectations, which means that our manufacturing jobs are looking weaker, right? The employment sector is looking a little bit weaker from that end for the month of February. Not the best of news to start things off. And then manufacturing new orders were at 48.6. This is showing some weakness because what's going on is manufacturing data tends to give us a forward-looking outlook on how other sectors are doing. So in this case, there's less demand than before. We're seeing new orders slowing down. And then simultaneously, despite that, we're also seeing the prices going up. So this is also inflationary, right? There's a big shift in manufacturing prices. They're continuing to go up, likely because of a shift in current sentiment from consumers. It's also because of other factors such as like tariffs, inflation already going up from like last month, and a bunch of different factors. So with that being said, this data is a bit more inflationary, and then simultaneously, it's not the best in terms of the overall sector. And that's part of why the market saw a bit of a dip. Now, we have a couple of bill auctions coming out at 11:30 a.m. This is quite minor, but there's something else that's affecting us, and that's going to be Donald Trump. What has Donald Trump been saying? Let's talk about this. So Donald Trump actually put something on his Truth Social account, and he mentioned that this is what he quoted. He said that tomorrow night will be big. I will tell it like it is. So very, very nice looking statement by Donald Trump. He's saying that tomorrow is going to be a big day, and that happens to be the day at which the tariffs are due for Canada and Mexico. He also threatened additional tariffs on China. So we're going to be listening to what's about to happen. The U.S. Commerce Secretary came out and mentioned that there's a possibility the tariffs could be reduced to some extent. So if that's the case, we'll see. But for now, we're just waiting for some updates. So for the time being, we're waiting to see what Donald Trump is going to be saying. What is he going to be saying about, these new pieces of data? What's he going to be saying about his new tariffs? What's his view about all of this for the time being? Will we truly see them being imposed for tomorrow, or is this just going to be another negotiation tactic? So we're waiting for that. That's going to be very, very big, at least for the markets. And also, if Donald Trump makes any claims today, that could also affect us. That's why I want to warn you all to be very careful. What I mean by that is be careful with this setup. I would not go way too heavy. I would be kind of careful and expect some volatility because you never know what Donald Trump could say, whether these tariffs are delayed or not. As of right now, and based off his statement where he's saying that tomorrow is going to be a big day, I think that there's a good chance that he will be imposing the tariffs. That's looking a bit more probable. So we'll see how the market responds to that. Did the market price this in already? Is it going to try to bounce, or is the market going to get a big rug pull? We'll just have to wait and see. But for now, we could talk about what technicals are suggesting. Technicals are not always everything. They do give us a good insight of what's very probable, but just remember, trading is a probability-based game. It's not always 100% guaranteed to give you the right setups that always play out. Meaning that sometimes setups don't play out, sometimes they do. The majority of the time, I think technical analysis is correct. It does tend to give us good insights, but with news and other factors like that, you always want to be open-minded. So anyways, let's talk about this market. We have a potential left shoulder developing here on SPY. This is kind of like our head. And we're going to be watching to see if we truly develop a right shoulder to eventually try to break out higher. This is the setup we're essentially looking for. It is looking a bit more bullish, at least technically speaking, but it's not a guarantee until we see our data. If SPY loses 594, we're looking for 590 as the main support. If that fails, so I'm looking for this imbalance around this 587.5 area, then the lows to be retested. If we could break 598, we're looking for 602 and eventually 605. As of right now, it is possible we get one more dip depending on what Donald Trump says, right? You always want to be open-minded just to be safe, so please keep that in mind. However, from a technical basis, If we could try to hold this low right here around the 590 area, if that holds and we don't end up losing that, there is a possibility and an argument that could be made for this inverse head and shoulders, right? Like I said before, setups aren't always guaranteed because we can't always predict the news, but this is a nice setup and there's a good chance this might play out, especially because of the fact that if I close this chart, or at least these lines, we have these imbalances to fill right here, right? We have these imbalances up here, which may lead to an upwards move very soon, right? That's a very, very strong possibility. This could be forming another reaccumulation down here. So there is a nice argument for upside that could be made. We'll see, just to be safe, depending on what Donald Trump says, but that is what I am essentially eyeing. For the QQQ, the same thing is essentially going on. If we end up breaking past 512.64, there's going to be an attempt to fill this imbalance towards 518. And then if we end up dipping, if we end up losing 505, we're looking for a dip back down to the low 500s. So I like the fact that we're attempting to make a higher low right here. This is actually a very, very nice setup. We came down here, we're trying to make a higher low, and that's a good sign for us to attempt this rebound to fill this imbalance over here. There's a nice setup right here, but that depends on if it could hold up. Right now, some stocks like Nvda are a little bit weaker, so that is affecting this to some extent. But overall, we're still trying to hold up. And I just want to see if we can hold support for now. If we can make a higher low, that's going to be a good sign for us to try to push higher. So we'll see about that. For the Russell 2000, we have an inverse head and shoulders like setup. We have a potential left shoulder. Whoops, sorry about that, guys. We have a potential left shoulder right over here that could be forming. So we have like a left shoulder, then like a head, and then a right shoulder that could be forming. Let me just fix this real quick. So we'll see about that. I definitely see the potential in this. That could actually be a little bit more promising. If we end up breaking past this 218 area, we're looking for an attempt to fill the imbalance at 221. If we end up losing 212, we're looking for a dip. So far, there's a little bit of weakness on the Russell 2000, but if we can make a higher low, that's going to be promising. So despite the short-term weakness, we'll have to see if we can establish a higher low compared to this low right here. As long as 210 does not break, then we could be looking for a bounce soon from a technical basis. On ES, interesting setup, inverse head and shoulders like pattern, but just to be very, very clear, I do not want to see us lose 5,900. If that fails us, we could be dipping to 5,850. We need to break 6,000 to turn bullish. Otherwise, we're in the middle. We're actually in between 6,000 and 5,900. We're stuck dead in the center. So we're very choppy. And I think there is potential to bounce if we can try to hold support and eventually break 6,000. For now, the setup looks decent, but we'll see how this ends up panning out. For NQ, we have a slanted inverse head and shoulders. I want to see us break past 21,000, eventually 21,300. If we end up losing 20,750, we're looking for a move back down to about 20,550. So watch those levels. This has potential for upside, especially because of this imbalance. We'll see, just to be safe, though, as time goes on. Bitcoin is trying to hold around 89,000, the level we called out in the morning. If this could hold, we could be trying to bounce back up to 92,700. If we lose this, we could be dipping closer to about 86,000, so we're stuck in the middle. This depends on what Donald Trump says, so we're just waiting for that. Nvidia is looking weak. We got this big sell-off because of some negative news that came out. However, despite that, we're watching to see if 117.68 holds or not. If it holds, this could try to bounce. If not, we could be dipping towards like 114.8. So I'll be watching that as well, just to be safe. So there is some weakness on Nvidia, but I want to see if we can make a higher low compared to like the 115s or not. If we could try to make a higher low, this could try to bounce. If not, it's not going to be a good sign, so just be careful. As far as Tesla goes, we're shuffling right here. There's a little bit of strength after what Morgan Stanley just said. They named Tesla the top US automotive pick, which is a good piece of news. However, we also have this inverse head and shoulders setup that could be forming, and we want to see this break resistance to really start pumping. If we break past like 305, I could be looking for an attempt for the 310s pretty quickly. If we don't end up doing that, if we end up losing like 292, we could be looking for a dip. But I just want to say there's an inverse head and shoulders, and there's potential for us to try to push higher. We're still holding up quite well. For Apple is looking at 240 as the main support. I think we're holding up well. It might dip a little bit closer to that support again. We're going to be watching to see how well we end up holding up, at least from this end. So just keep that in mind, especially as time goes on. So watch that very, very closely just to see how things develop. I think 240 could be tested again before it tries to rebound. It is showing resilience, though. What's good about Apple's when you zoom out, we're bouncing off this yellow trend. We bounced many, many times. So that's a good sign for Apple. We're doing a good job, in my opinion. For more tickers out there, we have, let me just double check this. AMD is attempting to rebound a bit. We want to see if we could break past 103.5. So far, it's doing a decent job. As long as 100 holes, we're looking good. ARM, kind of weak right now. We did mention that yesterday. We're looking for 127.8 or so. Coin, I mentioned if we lost 230, we're looking for this gap fill below. That's exactly what happened. So watch and see if we can try to base where this gap is, and then we'll see if we get a bounce later. Um, for Amazon, we're making lower highs. We were trying to get close to my 215 target. I think we just came short of that before it rejected. So now it's showing some weakness after some new news came out. We could be looking for a test of 207.5, and then it all depends on what happens with the tariffs. We're just kind of waiting for that. Meta needs to break 682 to turn bullish. If we lose 658, we could turn back down. Otherwise, we're stuck in the middle. For Microsoft, we have an inverse head and shoulders like setup. Overall, pretty decent. If we could try to make a higher low, I just don't want to see us lose the 389 area. If we could get back above like 398, we could bounce. So I am seeing some weakness in the chart, but we're holding support so far. So it's not officially like really bearish. We're trying to form an inverse head and shoulders. I just want to see these lows hold. If they hold and we get back above 389, then we will turn back to bullish. For now, we're just trying to see if the setup holds. Same thing with Google. I want to see if this could hold 170-ish, 168 to 170. If we lose 168, I will turn bearish. We need to see if that holds. We're still showing some weakness right now. So we'll see if we break 175 to turn back up. Otherwise, there is a little bit of weakness. So once again, Tesla is showing some strength compared to the markets. The market is a little bit flat right now, but what is good is the potential setup we have. So whether or not this setup pans out depends on what happens with Donald Trump's tariffs and also some other pieces of news. So please keep that in mind. With that being said, we'll see what else Donald Trump has to announce. He is saying tomorrow is going to be a big night, so he might be imposing the tariffs as soon as tomorrow. We will see about that. And whatever he says could cause a lot of volatility, so get ready. So I'll keep you guys updated in case he says anything else. Until I see you guys again, I thank you all so much for listening. Please have a good rest of your day, guys, and I'll see you guys on the next one very, very soon. Thank you for listening, and peace out.